Before I can properly talk about The Last of Us Part 2, I need to get this out of the way. This video is gonna have a ton of spoilers for Part 1 and Part 2, right? So if you don't wanna get spoiled at all for either of these games, do not watch this review, because this review, this analysis, is gonna have a lot of spoilers, things that you do not wanna know until you play the game. Now, I'm gonna give my spoiler-free thoughts just briefly. I don't think you should play this game. I feel like just don't play it, because this game is one of the most depressing games I have ever played in my entire life, which is insane. So don't play it if you don't have it. With that out of the way, let me tell you why The Last of Us Part 2 does not work. In order for me to talk about why this game doesn't work and the first one does, I have to talk about why the first game works. The first game works because of the story. The gameplay of the first game is really nothing to write home about. The AI is trash, and the gunplay is really mediocre, but you can get away with all of that if your story and your characters are excellent. And that's the thing with The Last of Us Part 1. The story is simple, but it's good because the characters are just so well written. Joel is one of the most morally complex characters in video gaming history, and his decision at the end of the game was so selfish, but it's because of that selfishness why we love Joel. It's because Joel is a human. He's like us. Ellie is that smart ass kid. It's just a good game because of the characters, really. This game does not have good characters, except maybe one or two, and I'm gonna get to those. So, in order for me to talk about this game, I gotta talk about it in as sequential of an order as possible. All right, so I'm gonna talk about one of the first new characters we're introduced to, which is Jesse, right? Jesse is a cool character, right? He's kind of like one of the leaders of this new group in Wyoming, not new group, but he's one of the, head honchos. He's a cool character, right? And yeah, Ellie and Dina are in a relationship, basically, throughout most of this game. Dina is the ex-girlfriend of Jesse, and Dina is pregnant. Let's remember that. Ellie and Dina work in this game. Their relationship works for the most part, but we'll get to why it doesn't at the end. Their relationship is just so natural. I know people love to say that if you have a gay person or anybody that's not a straight white man, it's forced, but this relationship was not forced at all. It worked for me, and it furthered the narrative of the story. And that's what I love, is that when you can take a relationship, whether it be gay or straight, and have it further the narrative. And that's what Ellie and Dina do.
Every guy in this room is staring at you right now. Maybe they're staring at you. Or not. Maybe they're jealous of you. I'm just a girl, not a threat.
So now let's get to the elephant in the room, Joel's death. Does it work for me? Yes, it does tremendously work for me. And the reason for that is because this entire game is about revenge at first. So Joel's death, in my opinion, had to be as violent and as dirty as possible for me to be in the shoes of Ellie and want Abby, his killer, dead. And it worked. I was just as upset as Ellie was. I've never been as upset at a death in a video game as I was when Joel died. So Joel's death works completely. And I don't understand why some people don't think it works. I know it's all subjective, but I think his death worked really well. So that's what the first, I'd say 30, 35, 40% of the game is about. It's about Ellie getting revenge on Abby for killing Joel. And throughout this time, we have a couple of flashbacks with Ellie, about Ellie talking about the past and what happened in between The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2. And I think these flashbacks work, right? These flashbacks work because they are there to further the narrative. They're not there for no reason. And they're about characters that we already know. Ellie in these flashbacks, in one flashback in particular, is very complicated because Joel tells her about the truth. And because Joel does this, it leads their relationship to be very estranged, right? And I thought that was very sad, but it worked and it felt natural to me. So that's about it for the first half of the game. The first half of the game, like I said, not really half, but people are calling it half. That part of the game, the Ellie section of the game, works for me very well, really.
Tell me what happened here. If you lie to me one more time, I'm gone. You will never see me again. But if you tell me the truth, I'll go back to Jackson. No matter what it is.
The part that doesn't work for me is everything after that, which is insane, right? Because apparently these are the same writers, but sure as hell does not feel like it. So for a good portion of the game, you're playing as Abby. For me, it felt like I was playing as Abby more than I ever played as Ellie, because Abby's section draws out. So the game's divided into days, right? Seattle day 1, day 2, day 3, and then same thing for Abby, Seattle 1, day 2, day 3. Abby's Seattle day 1 is so long and so unnecessary because I don't need to be told that Abby has people she cares about, because that's common sense. Everybody in this world has people that they care about. You know, they didn't, for example, that'd be like if Spider-Man PS4 just in the middle of the game just stopped and was like, hey, we're gonna talk about Dr. Octopus real quick and talk about why Dr. Octopus has people he cares about and why you should feel bad for him because Peter beats him in the end. It's like, no, I don't need to know that Abby has people she cares about, because it's pretty evident when, you know, Abby tells Ellie, you killed all my friends. It's like, okay, Abby has people she cares about. I don't need to play as Abby, but all right.
We let you both live, and you wasted it.
Seattle day 1 for Abby is terrible, right? Seattle day 2, however, is the game starts to pick up when Abby meets these two kids, these two former Seraphites, and they're getting hunted because one of the Seraphites is trans. And that worked for me because it's like, okay, you have this religious group. Why would somebody leave this religious group, right? And it's because, all right, one of them happens to be trans. They come out as trans, and it just, you know, starts something. That works for me. That furthered the plot, right? But the thing that didn't further the plot for me, in my opinion, was when we have, I forget the character's name. I think it was Lev. There's this part in the game where we kind of go on this side quest because he wants to visit his mother and tell his mother that, you know, he's trans, and then it just goes haywire. And that section of the game was sad. It worked in its own little bubble, but in my opinion, it didn't further the story at all. I feel like Ellie and Dina's relationship really furthered the story. You know, it was LGBTQ plus representation in the story, and it furthered the plot, it furthered the narrative, but I don't feel like Lev as a character really added much to the story. Same thing with his sister. I don't think they really did much. You know, they furthered Abby's story, but the fact of the matter is I don't care about Abby. I don't like Abby, so I'm not really gonna care about anybody she cares about. So I don't really think that section of the game worked at all. I feel like you could swap it out with any other character. I would still say the same thing. I just don't think that works, just to go on a side quest for Lev, who eventually, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. But hey, it could work for you. Art is subjective. If you like it, I'm glad. But that's basically the Abby portion of the game. You're introduced to her colleagues and everything, and she has a boyfriend, and she has to help these two kids out. Lev and Mel, I believe. That's the Abby portion of the game. But the main problem I have with the Abby portion of the game is that the game tries to make me like Abby, where throughout the entire Ellie section of the game, I'm supposed to hate her. So it seems pretty counterintuitive to make me try to really force me to sympathize with this character who killed somebody that I like and that Ellie likes, right? And you think that I'm going to magically like this character by playing as her? No, that's not cool. And the thing with her character is that they have these flashbacks. Like Ellie had these flashbacks, and Abby has flashbacks as well. But the thing with Abby is that with Ellie's flashbacks, they work because we already know who Ellie is as a character because of the first game. So these Ellie flashbacks are really just icing on top of a cake. All right, we don't know who Abby is, right? For most of the game, for that first half of the game, for the first Ellie section of the game, we hate Abby and we want nothing more than for her to die. So showing me flashbacks, trying to get me to sympathize with her, it just didn't work for me. And her characters in her section of the game just don't work for me. I don't like Owen. I don't know. I don't like Owen. I just don't. I don't like anybody. I don't like Mel because they just don't give me good vibes. It's weird. It's like I don't know if it's the writing or whatever, because I like Dina, I like Jesse, they're new characters, but everybody on Abby's side is just weird because I don't know, maybe it's because I was hunting them for a good part of the game, but they didn't work for me. Basically, Ellie's section ends with Abby coming to her makeshift crib, and Abby's section ends the same way, except you have to basically kill Ellie. You have to try to kill Ellie, and it just felt so icky and scummy, and it just felt so hammered down. It's like, why do I have to play? It's like, look, in games there's so many games where you have a boss fight and you have to lose the boss fight to progress. There's so many games like that. So there was no point in forcing me to play as Abby fighting Ellie. You could have had me fight. You could have had me be Ellie in that section, fight Abby, and lose. All right, you could have done that. And the main problem with Abby's section is that it doesn't further anything. It doesn't further the plot. It doesn't further the narrative. The story stops to a halt just for this Abby character and just to get me to sympathize with her. And it's insane because the story with Ellie was peaking. It was peaking. And then it hit this high point. And then it just dropped the second Abby section showed up. So then after Abby and Ellie are fighting or whatever, Abby's like, don't mess with me, girl. Don't mess with me. I'll kill you next time. Right?
Don't ever let me see you again. Come on.
And the insane part is that Ellie accidentally killed a pregnant woman. Accidentally, right? Not willingly. She didn't know she was pregnant. Abby has a pregnant woman in front of her, right? And she's about to kill Dina. Dina's the pregnant woman. She's about to kill Dina. And Ellie's like, she's pregnant. And Abby's like, good. And it's like, hold on. Wait a second. Guys. I get that Abby's friend was pregnant and died. But are you, like, this is a pregnant woman. And Abby's like, yeah, I want to kill her. It's insane. It's like, dude, why would you expect me to ever like a character like this who will willingly kill a pregnant woman? Abby's not likable. And when she kills Jesse, just more unlikable. Her character doesn't work. So during that boss fight, like I said, you lose this Ellie, and Abby threatens her and everything like that. So then we get an epilogue. We get an epilogue where Abby is trying to find the fireflies or whatever. And yeah, she finds the fireflies, fake fireflies, I think. The game doesn't really make it clear, but Ellie is basically, she's settled down with Dina. Dina gave birth to Jesse's kid, and they have a nice house. They got a nice view and everything. And Ellie, for some reason, is still on Joel and is like, I need to avenge Joel because Tommy comes to their crib and is like, yo, I know where she is. I know where Abby is. We gotta find her. Gotta kill her. It's just so cliche. It's like, at this point, it's like, come on, Ellie. It's been a year because the kid's born. So it's like, why are you still on this revenge thing? So it makes Ellie a bit unlikable. And then there's a flashback towards later in the game where it's that, I think it was the E3 demo where Dina and Ellie kiss. It's a great scene. In the E3 demo it was. But then the scene continues in this game. And the problem is that, all right, so this guy comes over and he's being a dick and he calls Ellie a dyke because, dyke's the slang for lesbian. And Joel defends her. And it's like, yeah, Joel, you're a good guy. Defend her because Ellie's like your kid. And Ellie gets mad at Joel. It's like, Ellie just became so unlikable in that moment, to the point where when I'm playing as her again in the game, I was upset. I was just as upset as I was when I was playing as Abby. I don't like any of these two protagonists at all. In the end of the game, the only character I enjoy who's alive is Dina, and Dina dipped. So it's just insane. It's like the game goes one way, and then it goes another way, and then it goes back to the way it was going, and then it wants me to like everybody, but at the same time, you're showing me things that make me hate everybody, and it just doesn't work. The gameplay is fine, but the gameplay obviously was going to be fine because it's Last of Us. You know, the gameplay is so irrelevant in this kind of game, but the story is just utter garbage, and I hate it a lot. That's why I don't think The Last of Us works, because the end of the game is Ellie. She finds Abby, and she lets Abby go. And it's like, okay, wow, that's crazy. What a confrontation. But the thing is, that's it.
Go. Just take him.
You know, the game ends like that. It ends basically. The whole story of this game was for nothing. I guess Ellie learns that revenge is bad, but it's like, how many times have we watched a movie or a show where that's the main point? You know, it's like this entire game is trying to tell me revenge is bad. It's like, yeah, duh, revenge is bad, but you know, you see, somebody can make the argument that the first game's plot was unnecessary, but the thing with the first game is the first game's plot had to end the way it did. It had to end with Joel not letting the Fireflies do what they were going to do to Ellie, because that game was about love. But this game, I don't know what it's about. You know, Neil Druckmann likes to say this game is about hate, and with Ellie's section of the game, it is. But you know, it's just, I don't know. I don't think they hit the nail on the head with this game. There's just a lot of narrative problems, things that are there that don't need to be there, things. I don't know. I feel like this game could have been fixed if you just took Ellie's section, bloated it, made this game solely about Ellie, maybe have a little bit of Abby, you know, just a little bit, but use those Abby sections to further the plot instead of just telling me another point of view. Then the game might have worked, you know, have the same ending, but it's just the fact that they have that Abby section that just slows everything down to a bloody pulp, makes everyone unlikable, because it's in that later section of the game where we have those flashbacks with Ellie making her unlikable. Just all of that did not need to be there, because when your protagonist is unlikable, I'm not rooting for anyone. In the final fight, I wasn't rooting for Abby, I wasn't rooting for Ellie. I was just rooting for the game to be over. So yeah, those are my thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2, my rant, really. I hope you enjoyed. If you like this game, let me know why. If you don't like the game, let me know why. And that's that.